wherever you are in the world, and welcome. I'm just going to get my list up right here because I list them all out, and I want to talk about 12, 12 mental models, right, that are really, really helpful for understanding, um, making decisions, making better decisions, learning better, being more efficient in general, being more productive, being more thoughtful, for also for our critical thinking skills and so on. So definitely, sorry, I am just coming from a class, so you have to bear with me. But I want to get to my the points. Hold on, let me actually. I have the list right here instead. Hold on. Here we go. There we go. I have the list right here. Perfect. I come organized, but I was just coming from class. And so, anyway, okay. So, the first system I want to talk about, we'll just get right into it. And again, my dog Athena is just endlessly. Look at her. She wants bothering me. Okay, so let's get into the models. One second. Oh man. Did I open the wrong? No, here we go. I got it. All right. So, number one. Where is my number one? I had seen my number two. Where's my number one? Okay. Where's my number one? Let's see. Okay, well, you know what? I don't see my number one, but let's talk about number two until I can find my number one. So here is the first one I'll discuss at least is bottleneck identification, identifying a bottleneck. I think a lot of us are not really that good at this, and trust me, I have blind spots about this as well. So a lot of times I've been stuck in a situation where I am trying to get something done, or I'm trying to learn something, especially, or I'm trying to think through a problem, think through a solution, and I don't quite know why something is not working. I actually I experienced a lot of this back when I was running my first business and also my second business. I think, again, like not everybody maybe can relate to running a business. It's fine. But I think business or, just career-wise, a lot of this is even more applicable and a lot of and pretty relevant because just the examples are right there. So, for instance, back in both businesses that I was running, and even today, I run my YouTube channel, and there's a lot of this that's involved where you have to identify what's the bottleneck. And what do I mean by that? Well, where in your process, there are steps to every process, right? There are steps in every process. And sometimes we don't know why it's inefficient or why it's not working, why we're not getting exactly the results we want. We want to go back and identify, well, in each step of my process, what is the bottleneck? So for instance, if you're learning something, like coding, for instance, well, I'm not coding, I'm not learning as fast as I want. I'm not, coding as proficiently as I want. Well, why is it? Well, maybe, you need to study some specific, like syntax, maybe is your specific issue. Or, for instance, if, a student is learning math, right? I encounter this all the time when I'm teaching a student, whether that's calculus or whether that's, stats or whether it's something like that. Maybe you don't understand, maybe you don't understand the chain rule well enough. Like maybe you actually have to go back to that. Maybe it's, you're even just something with your algebra. Like you forgot some rules, or you're not applying that well enough. Like go back over the problems, go back over your process, and figure out what is the actual step that you're making the most mistakes on. We're not really mindful of that. And we have to identify that variable in the process, and that's what we mean by bottleneck identification. Stop doing the same thing again and again and thinking you're going to get the same result. At the same time, though, there is also a mistake of changing things too fast, and this is a statistical phenomenon. Yes, we want to identify bottleneck identification, but the thing is, statistically speaking, you want to people change course too fast. When do you want to know? When do you know when you should change course and shift and go back and identify a bottleneck, and when is it too early? Well, here's a good kind of rule of thumb. You want to assume a proportion of something. So let's say, I'm going to make it relatable. Let's say you're I don't know, selling some product online. As an example, I mean, this is just one example. Let's say you have a t-shirt business and you're selling something online. And you're saying, well, okay, well, what's my conversion rate for people who land on my page and they check out and they buy something? Again, apply this to any situation in your life. Just an example. Well, so maybe the percentage is 3%. Okay, well, we assume it's 3%. Maybe you've observed that you had 100 sales, or you had 100 people who landed on your page. You got 3 people who bought something, t-shirts. So you have a 3% conversion, right? So that, in statistics, that's what you'd call the proportion. What you assume is, what's called the true proportion. Okay, from that standpoint, how does that help you make a decision? Well, at this point, you don't want to go and look for bottlenecks quite yet. 3%, if you're satisfied with a 3% conversion, keep doing what you're doing. It's too early to make a decision. Why? Because 100 as a number is too small. It might seem big to a lot of people, but it's too small to say, well, 3% is definitely the true conversion rate. What do you need to do? You need to keep going. Let's say you go, maybe 50 more people land on the page and you don't get one sale. Well, you don't want to change anything quite yet, because why? That is within statistically insignificant variation. What do I mean by that? Let me translate that to English. You might actually still have that 3% conversion, even if you didn't get results in the last 50, right? You got results in the first 100, but you didn't get any results. You got 3 in the first 100. You went 50 more and you didn't get any results. That does not mean you no longer have your proportion, your rates, your conversion is no longer 3%. You're still within what's called statistically insignificant variation. Okay? For more on this, that's why we should, for any kind of decision making, you should know some basic statistics. It's not you have to know some complicated statistics. Get some intro to statistics. Understand about variability. Understand about these things. Because sometimes you think that you're not getting the right result, but you're changing things a little too early. You want to go as long as you can until you're outside of the range of statistical insignificance, right? If you're getting to maybe 200 and you have no more conversions, right? Then you might suspect, okay, maybe it's not 3%. I still want to be within 3% conversion. So that being said, it's unlikely now that I'm still at 3%. Now let's go back and look and see where there might be a bottleneck. What can I adjust, right? That's when you want to start looking at bottlenecks. And so there is a right time and there's a wrong time. I experienced this back in, let me give you a very concrete example. I experienced this back in both previous businesses that I ran. Back in, I don't think I'm going to get to all 12 today, by the way. I'll do as many as I can. But this is just a live stream, so sometimes I get some comments from you on the, hey Gmail user, which shaving razor do I use? I use an electric one. I forget what the brand is, but oh, thank you. Me with a beard, me with a mustache, I felt like doesn't look too nice, but that's just maybe a subjective thing. But the thing is that I experienced this back with the previous 2 businesses that I ran, both the SAT, the test prep, academic test prep agency that I ran, and also the sales-based business that I ran. In both of those, I would regularly not get the results that I'm looking for, and then I'd assume, oh, it's not working or something's not working, and then go and change something too early. That's why you have to understand, is the result that you're seeing right now within predictable or typical variation, right? Statistically insignificant variation or not? That's going to let you know, that window is going to let you know, should I change something or should I keep going and keep doing what I'm doing until I pass that point? Maybe it's 100 more, trials, so to speak, that you need to do, whatever appointments it is, or visitors to your website, or whatever, maybe study sessions, whatever that is. Whatever number you're measuring, how many more do I need to go without a result in order to say I am outside of the proportion that I assumed at the beginning, and I need to make an adjustment? That's a very, very calculated way to understand when you should make an adjustment and not. So, that being said, bottleneck identification is one of the key mental models, but that needs to get some context, because people change things up too fast, too soon, all the time, and that's going to almost ensure you're not getting results. You might get results, but it's almost going to ensure you don't know, you're uncertain about what's even going on and why you're getting the results you're getting if you're changing things too much. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. That applies to learning something new, right? Don't keep adjusting constantly your approach. The next one, let's see, I'm going trying to go in order here. So let's see. Okay, I'm just gonna go with respect to I don't know where my number here. Number 2. Where's number 3? Oh, okay. First principles thinking. Okay, first principles thinking, and I actually have a video coming up on first principles thinking this Friday. But first principles thinking, what is first principles thinking? I mean, I think of it as just critical thinking. But best book for mental models. There is actually, what is the author? Rhiannon, first name is Rhiannon, first name is Rhiannon, R-H, I believe, I-A-N-N-O-N, and then Beau something, French last name. But the 2 books, it's 2 volumes, I think. One is, it's called The Great Mental Models. Yeah, so The Great Mental Models, it's a good book for that. It's called The Great Mental Models, and there's a volume 1, Great Mental Models, volume 2, a lot of good heuristics in there, but I will have a full video coming up, as I said, this week, but I won't be covering every single one in there. I might at some point do maybe a video on like all mental models ever, but it's a little bit hard to cover all of them in depth if I do that. So I'd like to give bit by bit, videos on each one that go into some depth on each one, instead of going through, tons and not saying much about them. Gaurav, you're saying here, Gaurav, give some practical videos while approaching some thinking and using any mental model in that practical approach, like speaking out of what's happening in your mind. I think this Friday's video, you're going to get a lot out of that then, because that's what I'll be discussing. I'll be discussing how to use 5 specific mental models, but with specific examples for each. And then also, in a few weeks, I'll be discussing some specific learning skills with mini lessons for each. So stay tuned for that. Aman, you said you gave your top 50 recommendations. I loved it. Need top 50. Yeah, so yeah, I will. Gaurav, any tips to increase my focus? I will potentially circle back to your question, okay? Because that's a very loaded question. There are a lot of reasons we may not be able to focus, but there is a book, I forget the author off the top of my head, but it's called Indistractable. It's actually pretty good. It's called Indistractable, so I would recommend looking into that book. But for now, let's get into first principles thinking. I actually won't go into a lot of that here because I'm going to be discussing that in this Friday video. So actually, executive decision here, I'll skip that. I'm going to go into the next principle, which is feedback loop awareness. Feedback loop awareness. Okay, what is feedback loop awareness? Now, a feedback loop. What is a feedback loop? A feedback loop is one variable, x, let's say, causes some change in variable y, and stay with me here. It sounds really technical, but it's simple. And y in turn causes some change in variable x. X in turn again causes some change in variable y. So they are actually causing changes in each other. Being aware of what feedback loops are in our lives is very important. Why? Because, for instance, let's say, and here's just a simple one. I will create. Yeah, maybe I will create a mental model series. Here's a simple example. Right? If you drink too much coffee, you might not sleep well, or you drink it too close to bed, you might not sleep well. Once you don't sleep well, you're going to be tired the next day. Right? If you're tired the next day, it's going to cause you to want to what? Drink more coffee. If you drink more coffee, you're going to feel tired, and so on. So it's a consistent feedback loop. What you want to do in terms of your thinking is reflect, what am I doing? What habits do I have that are actually feeding on each other? Maybe it's motivation by Ray Dalio. So more on mental models or principle by Ray Dalio. Well, okay, I'll quickly answer this question. I think that Principles by Ray Dalio, it's actually kind of a rehashing of a lot of just normative principles from philosophy, quite honestly. I mean, if you want to go deep with what Ray Dalio is actually saying, I would say go back to the key foundational philosophers of ethics, which is John Stuart Mill, Sidgwick, Jeremy Bentham, Immanuel Kant, Aristotle. Like, go back to those key, normative philosophers. But in terms of mental models, mental models are useful. I would say here's the problem with mental models, though. You don't try to use all of them all at once. There are tons of mental models, which is why actually in this Friday's video, once again, I want to try to simplify it down and boil it down to the most essential ones you're going to use in your everyday life. And so that's people get overwhelmed with concepts. Use it. Start using it. Don't think so much about what's the perfect mental model. The most important mental model is the one you use and you try, right? So use it and try it, then come back and keep learning about different ones, different approaches you can take. Feedback loop awareness. Try to identify where there are feedback loops in your life. For instance, it could be with motivation. A famous feedback loop is Albert Bandura's feedback loop. It's actually one of the most complex things to model, actually, mathematically and all of this. And statistically, it's called triadic reciprocal determinism. Basically, yes, hello, Athena. That's my dog. So, your behavior causes you to feel or think certain things cognitively. Your cognition causes your thoughts cause your behavior in a certain way. Your behavior causes changes in the environment. The environment causes changes in both your thoughts and your behavior. All right, so that's an example of a three-way feedback loop. I want you to start thinking, I'm not going to get deep into this right now, but I want you to start thinking, what are some feedback loops that are happening in my life? Where can I interrupt them? What are some negative ones that are happening to me? Another one that I want to talk about is falsification. So falsification is a method popularized by actually Karl Popper, who is a famous philosopher. And falsification is it's part of kind of your design process for a plan. If you're planning something out, or you're trying to achieve a goal, right? Hey, Komyo, welcome. If you're trying to achieve a goal, okay, sometimes you shouldn't ask, well, what would make me successful? What would help me hit this goal? You should ask, sometimes if that's not working for you especially, you should ask, well, what would definitely cause me not to hit this goal? Right? That's kind of a falsification approach, or an inversion approach. So what would cause me not, or what would prove me wrong? That kind of thing. Well, by asking that, it makes it clearer, because sometimes it's very hard to know, well, what's going to help me succeed? What's going to help me hit my goal? Right? With YouTube, I ask this a lot. What would cause me not to succeed with YouTube? Well, not being consistent, not delivering value to the audience, not not planning ahead, not having a workflow, not having some weekly discipline, not educating myself on a regular basis. There are a lot of things that would cause not putting thought into my thumbnails or my introductions, or like, these are some things that you want to identify. That's relevant to me, but what's relevant to you, right? So think about these things. A lot of times it's a lot clearer if you pose it that way. Will it guarantee I succeed with this or that? Will guarantees I succeed with YouTube? But no. But those things, not doing those things, guarantee I won't succeed. So you see that? So, I am great, Komio. Welcome. And I'm great. How are you? X Focus Hub. Hey, welcome. So that's that. We talked about bottleneck identification. We talked about falsification. We talked and kind of inversion. And we want to get into modularization. What is modularization? So sometimes we have this big goal, right? We have this big goal. Or we have, let's say, with respect to learning something. I want to learn this skill. I want to learn how to, what's a skill? What's a good skill? Top 10% of strategies versus bottom 10%. Yes. Well, I don't know if that's a question, Heart Matters, or what, if that's you have a specific question about that. But coding skills. Yeah. Perfect. X Focus Hub. That's a good one. Coding skills. So let's say I have this big project. I want to be able to code, let's say, some specific. Sorry, So do you want to code? You want to code? No, she can't code, right? But I want to code some database or something, right? Within 10 months, I want to be able to do that. Well, a lot of times people have that goal, but they don't understand the steps, or they don't understand the pieces that they will need. Modularization allows us to break things down into manageable pieces and make it explicit for us. We create milestones, and it becomes more doable, right? I could do this small step. Make sure you're doing that modularization. And welcome. I discovered your channel recently. Glad to find a fellow nerd. Also have a cognitive science background. That's very, very cool. So strictly speaking, no, that's awesome. Fellow nerds rule. Hey, welcome to the channel. Feel free to reach out anytime, ask any questions. Heart Matters, you're a software architect. Yeah, I'm way more concerned with avoiding the bottom 10% rather than discovering the absolute best solution. Yes, exactly. There's George Polya, who was a famous mathematician. He actually wrote a book, I think it's like How to Solve It. It's called How to Solve It, or Solve It, something like that. And he laid out a lot of these kinds of engineering steps, or an engineering way of solving problems, approaching problems. Define the problem, right? Part of what we just talked about is this falsification approach. What exactly would I have to, what activities or thought patterns or behaviors would I have to absolutely avoid in order to prevent myself from failing, right? What would absolutely prevent me from hitting my goals, right? That's a great question. Heart Matters, exactly. That's what we were just talking about. Feel free to re-watch that section after. Henry Griffin, welcome. What was the name of the book? I believe it is, hold on, How to Solve It? I just want to make sure I give you, How to Solve It by George Polya. It's a really old book from 1945, I think. But it's a really useful book. It's still super relevant. Like, not a lot, it's funny, not a lot changes in that time. Camera. Oh, Turkey. Wow, awesome. I think my first viewer from Turkey that I know of. I have not been to Turkey yet. I actually really want to visit Turkey. Amazing historical place. I'm very into history, so and very historical, very culturally rich place. Very, very cool place. Okay, Heart Matters. The way I solve complex software problems is first define the quality of the outputs. Yeah, exactly. That defines the requirements for the components, and those define the requirements of the inputs. Yeah. A lot of people don't do this in everyday life. We can apply this to everyday life as well. Defining the problem. Defining the problem. Most of us don't do that in the first place. Like, oh, things are going wrong. I actually find, I know you've heard this a million times from a million different people, but journaling is very true. Journaling is a really great way for me to help define problems. I actually use this kind of like little matrix sheet. I haven't talked about this in a while. Like a very simple matrix. I'll take a sheet of paper and I'll divide it down the middle. Here's problems on one side, solutions on the other side. And I will, for anything that's on my mind, because from time to time you feel like there are so many problems, right? They come all at once, and suddenly you don't know why you're feeling the way you do, but you just are feeling a certain way, and it's like, well, why am I feeling so negative and so down? And so listing out all the problems explicitly, and I typically, what I'll do is I'll list those in the problems column, and I'll try to come up with an arrow to the other column with at least 2 solutions, 3 possible solutions for each problem. Then from there, I'll take one of the actions. I'll pick one of these 2 to 3 solutions in that column, and I'll pick one of them, and I'll schedule it into my calendar. So, do you think a president can be a mental model? A president? So a mental model is more of like a shortcut, like a mental shortcut. A president could be a model. I think that's what you're talking about. Like a leader could be a model, and definitely a leader is a model for behavior. That's well demonstrated. So Pitar, I study my engineering subjects from old books, way better. Yeah, a leader, by the way, can definitely influence behavior, for good or for bad. So way better. Yeah, absolutely. There is actually a domino effect with respect to behavior and large groups of people. It's actually called, if you're interested, it's called threshold theory, where enough people are doing something or engaging in some activity or have some belief, and at a certain point it overcomes something called the collective action problem, and then more people start adopting that behavior. Right? Yeah, it's a interesting theory. So we will get into what is the next one, layered abstraction. So this mental model, and then the mental model is layered abstraction. So to apply this, we want to zoom in and out between the specifics and big picture understanding. So what does this mean? Sometimes we're looking at a problem too granularly, and I know my engineers maybe who are on here, you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you're looking at maybe the code a little too closely at a specific point. Maybe you need to zoom out and look at the bigger picture, right, and see, okay, how is this operating as a whole? And maybe that gives me some insight as to what I should change. Maybe it's not. Maybe the true problem isn't at that granular point that I'm looking at. Maybe it's in a big picture, at a bigger picture. So let me look at the things here. I saw a professor. He said leaders should be narcissist. Is it true? You think no? Leaders should not be narcissistic. No, leaders should never be narcissistic. I totally disagree with that. Totally disagree with that. A true leader is not narcissistic. I see a true leader should be a servant. A true leader is a servant there to serve you. If a leader, I didn't mean to get political here, but this is true. And it's not even political. This is in everyday life. If a leader is not somebody who is serving you, then you should get rid of the leader. That's not a leader. That's a boss. That's a dictator. That's a authoritarian, right? That's not somebody who you should follow, right? To model a narcissist. First of all, true narcissists are a very small percentage of the population anyway, so is it even possible for most people to model a narcissist? I don't even think so, because most people don't think that way anyway. So yeah, so humans naturally want to start with the inputs. When you start that way, you end up going down. Yeah, exactly. I agree. So interestingly, I'm very busy today. I actually have another class. I have a class that I have to teach virtually, of course. But guys, feel free to join me this time every Wednesday until the summer, until mid-August. I'll change it back to the original time. But yeah, feel free to subscribe to my channel, watch my other videos, take a look at check out my Critical Thinking Academy if you are into that kind of stuff. It's in the About section of my profile. You can find that also in any of the video descriptions. And guys, stay with me. Feel free to reach out to me anytime with questions, ideas. I always love conversation. So guys, I will see you soon. Take care. Have a wonderful day.